Most of you know the story of the Tower of Babel and how Yahweh Elohim scattered the people and divided their languages. I never really understood the powerful results that came from this punishment until I moved to a country that does not speak the same language that I speak. He sentenced man to this judgment because of the wickedness of their hearts. Living in another culture that speaks a different language has taught me to hunger even more for our Messiah's return. I say this because when he returns, he will restore all things, and one of the many wonderful things that he will restore is the original pure language. This original language is the ancient Hebrew tongue. There is a growing number today who have a desire to speak this language and are studying it, but they are studying it from the understanding that man has of it. It is a language that was lost and out of use except for a small trace of its use in liturgy. It was not revived as a spoken language until the 19th century. It was merely reconstructed by men who have brought forth their own understanding of how words are pronounced and such. Some of you think that I am a false prophet because of how I pronounce Yahweh's name or how I pronounce his son Yeshua's name. You base this judgment by standing on your claim that it is Yahweh or Yahweh or Yahushua or some other pronunciation. Who taught you how to pronounce it? The Hebrew language was out of use for centuries. As I have said, it was a reconstructed language that was reconstructed by men. This has nothing to do with the Hebrew language, but I actually even had one person scoff at me because I say the book of Revelations instead of the book of Revelation, singular. Recently, one man has told me that he was having a hard time believing that I'm a prophet because I used the word luck in a couple of the videos when I said the expression good luck with that one. He pointed out to me that I used the word holy and some other words that he says came from pagan origins. Well, do they? I don't know. The languages of men are definitely perverted by the influence of Satan in many ways, but should this be our focus? Or should our focus be on why we were created? I can tell you that my Father does not have me focused on these things. He has me focused on his path and turning people to his narrow path. Listen to these videos that he has had me post and ask yourself if I should be speaking on the Hebrew pronunciation of words instead of what he has me speaking on. He is restoring much truth to prepare a people for his son's return, but he is not restoring the Hebrew tongue yet. When he does, it will be instantaneous for all, just as the separation of the languages was instantaneous. Man's reconstruction of this tongue is not the original language. It is merely based on what Jewish scholars and other scholars think that it was. One of the first videos that I posted was why Yahweh and why Yeshua. I explained in that video that I relied on the source to give me the pronunciation. I did not study what man had to say on the subject. One person questioned me because I spoke the word God and the word Jesus in a few of these videos. I do not call them by these names, but I have referenced these words occasionally when referring to what others call them by. He quoted a verse that I have quoted before myself to show that we should not call them by the names that others call them. But he was saying to me that we should not even utter these words out of our mouth. Let's examine this verse for a moment and look at what the other prophets have spoken. The verse is found in Exodus 23, verse 13. He says, Moses says, guard or hedge about all that I have said to you, and make no remembrance of the names of other Elohims, neither let it be heard out of your mouth. Well, did Elijah quote that if Baal be your Elohim, then serve him? How about Jeremiah and Hosea and Zephaniah? All of these prophets spoke by the name of Baal, but they were not calling Elohim by this name. If you question me for using these words in the capacity that I have, are you willing to question these other prophets on the same grounds? It is clear that Elijah was telling them that if they thought that the image or the character of Baal is Elohim, then serve that image. They were between two opinions as to who Elohim's identity was. Of course, we are not to call him by any other name except that which represents his true character either. It's obvious. The point that I want to ask each of you to consider is, what is your life about? Is it about the pronunciation of his name and these other distractions? Or is it about bearing his true name by bearing his character? I do think that the pronunciation of his name is important. Don't get me wrong on that. And I believe that he has given me the pronunciation, but it certainly is not about this. I have not so much as made one reply to someone telling them that they are wrong for saying Yahweh or Yahweh or Yahushua or any other pronunciation of it, because this is not the focus that he has given me, nor should it be your focus. I have simply asked some if they got their pronunciation from the teachings of men, or maybe I pointed out to them that they did get their pronunciation from the teachings of men. The point that I'm trying to make is, it is not about the pronunciation of his name. And the Hebrew language was lost and it was reconstructed by men. If you wanted to know the true pronunciation of his name, you might want to ask his prophet, whom he is restoring other things through, instead of saying that he is not his prophet because of how he pronounces the name, just because it is different than what you have been taught. If you want to measure someone's faith on how his name is spoken, that is your choice. He has given you the true measuring rod through me that all will be measured by, but many of you would rather scoff at me about how I pronounce his name instead of listening to what he is speaking through me. A study of the Hebrew language, from what we know about it, shows that it is clear that someone's name is a representation of their character. It is what his name represents that is most important, and it represents his perfect, eternal, pure, and righteous character. He is self-existing, and there is no other self-existing one, just like he says. But is it okay if we call him God or his son Jesus? No, the character that these names represent are obviously blasphemous. I want to add here that even if you say his name correctly, you can blaspheme it by blaspheming his character, even in your mind, even in your thoughts. Having the correct pronunciation is far from excluding you from blaspheming it. The same goes with his son's name. I mentioned that one man told me that the English word holy came from pagan origins. I looked it up, and what I found from the dictionary sources is the word came from the word, the Old English word haleg, which meant to be made whole or complete. This is certainly not an accurate definition of the word, but it is far from saying that it is from pagan sources. The word dates back to at least before 900 AD. The Greek word that it came from is hagios, and the Hebrew counterpart for it is kodesh. I did find an article that was saying that we should not use the word holy because the definition that man has given it is different than the definition of the Greek word hagios or the Hebrew word kodesh. This article brings up a good point that most do not understand what the true character of the word is. But does that make the word evil? Or does it make man evil for not seeking to understand the word, since we are commanded to be holy, or to be kodesh? For that matter, man's definitions for kodesh and hagios certainly can contain faulty definitions as well, depending on the source that you use to look them up. This article discussed that the Greek word and the Hebrew word for holy means to be separate. This is true in part, but this is just a partial description. If you go into a complete study of the Hebrew word kodesh, it means something consecrated or set apart to Elohim. It carries with it the depth of that which is being made clean or purified. It is that which is dedicated or devoted to Elohim and without defilement. It is certainly a separation from the world and all that is of the world, and it means that we are to be separate unto him. To be holy is to be separated unto his righteousness. It is what the word captures in our minds and in our hearts that makes it true or not. The perfect example of this is the name of Elohim. If you pronounce his name correctly, but blaspheme the true character or the nature of his name, you have still transgressed against him, no matter how you stack it up, or what name you use. It is all about the definition or the description of the word. The Greek word hagios came from the word hagnos, which means chaste or pure. It certainly means set apart or separated, but it is separated to that which is without defilement as well. Is perverting his Sabbaths being separated unto him without defilement? Something for you all to consider. Most of you caught up in these words are defiling his Sabbath. This article offered the suggestion that we use the word separated instead of holy. Would this make us more righteous? Or would living the true definition of it make us more righteous, no matter what language we speak the word from? I'm not sure if Satan had his hand in the translation of this word into the English language or not. In this article, they made the claim that the word holy has similarities to an old Greek word, hyli, which means the sun's rays. I'm not sure how they figured that holy came from hyli, but I guess the connection that they are trying to tie it to is the worship of the sun god. For that matter, we should stop calling Yeshua the son of Elohim and find a different word for his description, like the male offspring of Elohim, because the word son sounds an awful lot like sun, because I'm the sun in the sky. I better not give them any ideas, or maybe they already thought of that one, I don't know. I do want to point out some real trivia for you, though. The Jewish authority that was responsible for changing the true calendar in the 4th century was named Hillel II. This does sound an awful like the Greek word hyli. It's spelled basically identical too, with an L on the end of it. This article also said that they found a Hindu spring festival held in the honor of the spring sun god that was called Holy with an I, which is how holy was spelled in the mid-English text. But I'm not sure in what language this festival's name was translated from, or any of the details of when this festival was, or it was in history and such in relation to the timing of the other words, nor will I spend my time chasing this rabbit. I am spending way too much time on this subject, but these things are what some people are focused on, and they are not focused on the real meat and potatoes. Understanding that being Kodesh means that we are to be separated unto him is one thing, but becoming separated unto him by not being defiled is the real meat and potatoes. Better be careful. Maybe meat and potatoes, that expression came from pagan sources too. I don't know. Focus on what our Creator is restoring. It is awesome. We can certainly look forward to the one true language being restored, and we do not have long to wait, so we must prepare and be found doing his will when Yeshua returns. It is obvious that Satan mocks the word holy with the term hallowed with his pagan celebration of Halloween. But which came first, Satan's mockery of the word, or did hallowed come out from Halloween? The origin of this pagan celebration goes back a long time ago, but it was not given the name All Hallows Eve until the year 1556. So the question is Satan mocking the word, or did the word come from pagan origins, his origins? As I said, dictionary.com says that the word holy can be traced back to before the year 900 AD, a long time before Halloween became named such, 600 years or more before. Satan mocks much indeed, but is he really the source of this word? I do not know. I just know that it is not my focus, nor should it be yours. He is the source of many perversions. Our focus must be on becoming holy by its true definition, no matter whether you want to call it Kodesh or separated or whatever you call it in your language. I'm sure there's lots of different languages that it's spoken in. Some who write to me are very sincere in what they believe, but it is possible that you can become sincerely distracted. And obviously, with all of the different beliefs that are out there, there are many who are sincerely wrong. Consider that it is Satan's primary goal to deceive us, and one of his most often used tactics are smoke screens to divert us from the path that we should be walking on. he sets up the distractions. Here's a consideration for you to ponder. Let's say that Satan did in fact have his hand in the English translation of the word holy. Which of the following two people has he deceived with it? The one whose time is spent looking into the origins of all of these words and is not truly focused on the path that was laid before them? Or the one who is focused on the true meaning of the word and living that truth instead of where the word came from? It is important to understand that no one knows that they are deceived. I did not know that I was deceived, but I remember where my focus was when I was focused on what all of the scholars had to say and spent my time reconciling what they said into what I believed instead of simply believing the word and living it. There is only one way that we can be right, and that is if we are in agreement with our Creator and living to be in agreement with Him. Some also scoff because I have proclaimed the day and the year of our Messiah's return. I'm amazed how so many scoff at the notion that one would actually proclaim the day of His return, because Scripture plainly says that one would bring forth this proclamation. To scoff at it is to scoff at Isaiah's words. Your scoffing is why the day will overtake most of you as a thief in the night. Folks, there are many things that we can get caught up in because Satan does have all sorts of distractions set up. We must remain focused with our eyes single, and they must be single on His kingdom and the path into it and nothing else. Yeshua is the path and He is the Logos of Elohim. We must be focused on the Logos. I use the Greek word logos instead of the English word word because the definition of it expounds upon what it is. I use it to set it apart so that we do not get lost in just the physical word of the word, the actual, what the words physically say. For this reason, maybe the English word holy is not the best word to use either, although I do know what the true definition is. Others might not. I'm sure most do not. Going forward, I will definitely define it in more detail when I speak of it, or at least as often in these videos, so it should certainly be our focus. And speaking it as being separate certainly has merit, but this is not the entire picture either, as I said. We cannot leave out the part of the equation that it includes not being defiled and learning what this means as well. Understanding that which we are separating ourselves unto and living that reality is what makes us separate unto Him. Actually, I just thought of a phrase that does work. Instead of saying Holy Spirit or separated spirit, an accurate term would be the spirit that separates us so that we can learn not to be defiled. It could be abbreviated the spirit that separates us, but even this would need additional instruction. The same could apply to the 7 spirits that make up His spirit that separates us. Thus they could be called His 7 spirits that separate us. I like it, but the point remains, don't get all caught up in these distractions. They are snares. In this case, we untangled the snare with something good came out of it. The Hebrew tongue in its original form will be an awesome language to return to. I hope that each of you turns to the truth that will set you free so that we can all be there to use it, to speak with one another when it is restored. Until then, if you want to scoff at me for, say, Yahweh or Yeshua, consider your source for your pronunciation. And start measuring what I have spoken in comparison to the words of your Messiah and the other prophets who have come before Him and before me. Measure yourself against the measuring rod as well that has been given. That's what all will be judged by. I am merely crying out to you to return to the path of old, the same path that the saints of the Most High chose to march into His kingdom on.